Hello, welcome, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Avni. I'm the founder of Warriors Connect, which is a peer support community for persons diagnosed with various mental health conditions and their caregivers. हम अपने community के members के लिए कई सारे events करते हैं, online and कुछ offline भी. लेकिन आज का event बहुत special है, क्योंकि our guest is Aparna Piramal Raje. She's a writer. She's a design thinker. You should check her out on the Mint. She's a prominent mental health advocate and motivational speaker who has authored the popular book, Chemical Khichdi. The full name is Chemical Khichdi, How I Hacked My Mental Health. It's a great read. So thank you, Aparna, so much for doing this. Tonight, we're going to talk a lot more about your journey of living with a chronic mental health condition, or rather, thriving with it, in your words. So, उससे पहले अगर आप कुछ opening remarks देना चाहते हैं हमारे audience के लिए, that will be great.
Yeah, thank you, Avni, for having me, and thank you to everybody for being here. I think it's very special to be part of a peer support community. हमारे यहाँ इतने बहुत कम communities होते हैं, और मैं अपनी को बहुत उनका जो sincere effort है इसको बनाने में मैं उसको support करना चाहती हूँ. I'm really looking forward to a lot of question and answers from you. Whatever questions you want to ask, please ask them. मैं सिर्फ कहना चाहती हूँ कि हम लोगों ने शायद पिछले 2-3 दिन में सुना होगा कि एक ओडिशा में एक मिनिस्टर थे जिनकी हत्या हुई थी एक पुलिस अफसर से, और फिर कह रहे हैं कि ये जो पुलिस अफसर थे वो उनको बाइपोलर हैं, उनको मेंटल इलनेस है. और ये समस्या देख कर मुझे ऐसे लगता है कि हम it could have been any of us really. I think I've been lucky that I've had treatment. My family have supported me. They have understood my condition. But I think all of us perhaps today have had our moments of lot of struggle. And I think that, the fact that we are all here and that we want to support each other, and that we acknowledge that we are going through some difficult times, whether we are a caregiver or whether we are somebody who's got a mental health condition, I think is a very important step. And I always say that mental health is a team sport. And in that situation of that police officer, we could see what happens when mental health is not a team sport, when no one is managing it, when society is not managing it, when the community is not managing it, when the family, the workplace, the doctors, the medical system, all of that doesn't happen. So I think that's really the tone that I wish to set for today, is that, that we have a support group of people who understand what we're going through, all in different parts of, we may be from different parts of India, we may be from different backgrounds, we may be speaking different languages, but we are all here to support each other. And I think that's a very important thing.
Thank you, Aparna. Thank you. It's really beautiful. And the fact that you brought in the Odisha case is also, really pertinent. आज हमारे audience के खातिर मैं 1-2 चीजें बोलने की liberty ले रही हूँ, क्योंकि I first contacted you when I started reading your book, Chemical Khichdi. तब तक तो मैंने finish भी नहीं की थी. So clearly I was quite excited. Around that time, मैं Warriors Connect start ही कर रही थी. But mainly the connect I felt was because I saw a lot of my life in your journey, which you've written so beautifully in your book. So I'm sure many others felt similarly. जैसे आप कहते हैं, we are all here to support each other because there are large parts of our struggle which are in fact common. So when I was reading Chemical Khichdi, एक basic level का connect तो था ही, same diagnosis, bipolar disorder. लेकिन उससे कई ज़्यादा similarities मुझे दिखी in the challenges that life brings to us because of our mental health conditions. And in fact, Warriors Connect के concept का भी basically ये design है that although we live with our respective mental health conditions, irrespective of the exact diagnosis, we can all learn from each other's experiences around career, relationships, self-care, bouts of depression, anxiety, and so on, इसलिए हमने अपने आप को किसी एक मेंटल हेल्थ कंडीशन पे रिस्ट्रिक्ट नहीं किया है. एंड फॉर द सेम रीजन, अपर्णा, आई वुड लाइक टू आस्क यू अ फ्यू क्वेश्चंस टुडे that would be relevant for anyone battling mental health issues. Um, as you said, either someone living with them or caregivers to someone like that. Would that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, start.
Okay, so Aparna, my first question is a rather specific one. I wanted to ask you about the feeling of career underachievement, because this is quite pervasive among people who have had their fair share of mental health challenges. मैं अपनी बात भी करूं तो स्कूल एंड कॉलेज में बोला जाता था कितनी ब्राइट है, कितना पोटेंशियल है, अच्छे मार्क्स, अच्छा कॉलेज, अच्छी डिग्रीज, और फिर मेंटल हेल्थ की वजह से रुकावटें तो आई. लेकिन all said and done, underachievement is a subjective feeling, and I know you have felt it. So how did you overcome that and end up being where you are right now?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that the thing is, we all feel that we are not good enough. I think that apne jo samaj mein ye not being good enough is a very common feeling, even if you don't have a mental health condition, because हम लोग सोशल मीडिया पर दूसरी बाकी और लोगों की जिंदगी देखते हैं और सोचते हैं कि हम लोग सुंदर नहीं हैं, हम लोग इतना सक्सेसफुल नहीं है, हमारे पास इतना पैसा नहीं है, हम इस तरह घूमते नहीं हैं. तो इतनी अपनी जो कमियां जो होती है, जो हमारे मन में है, शायद बाहर को किसी और को दिखाई नहीं देता है. And you may think that somebody like me, outwardly I seem so successful कि हार्वर्ड में पढ़ी हूँ, ऑक्सफोर्ड में पढ़ी हूँ, आपके जैसे टॉपर हूँ, ये सब आप तो you're a doctor and you're a neuroscientist, right? So you've got this amazing degree. So I think that it's easy for people like us. We set very very high standards for ourselves. जब मैं अपने हार्वर्ड के रियूनियन में जाती थी, मैं सोचती थी कि सब लोग इतने सुशील हैं, इतने सक्सेसफुल हैं, कंपनीज के सीईओ हैं, but we are not. But I didn't feel good enough, and I mean, I felt it to the extent that I was thinking that this is the end of my life. When I was a married woman, I had 2 children, and I used to still think that this is the end of my life because I don't think I'm successful enough. Mm-hmm. That is what success mattered to me. And it is the high standard that I was attaching to my own sense of self, that the high standard, which I think is impossible. And I think the way out of that is that, for me, I took a lot of help from mentors, to say that, to reinvent myself. And because my family literally asked me to leave the family business, which was something that I had wanted to do my whole life and I was trained to do. And yet I had to leave that family business. I always thought I would be the CEO and, the managing director of one of the companies. And they said, no, you can't handle it because of your mental health. You're taking too much stress and you're not able to do the job. And there were other reasons also. But so I had to really spend a lot of time redefining myself, and finding a new purpose for my life, finding a new maqsad for my life, finding a new sense of identity. These were all the things that were really important. And it took several years. With the help of my mentors, I got there. But I needed, it took me a long time to get to that stage. If I go back and see what I wrote in my journal 10 years ago and what I am today, there has been a huge change. There's a huge change. Today, people are calling me and saying that, can you speak here? Can you do this podcast? Can you do this? And I have to tell them, no, I'm sorry, I don't have the time. I can't do it. I need to prioritize my time. Whereas 10 years ago, I was busy trying to reinvent myself, and I would be so happy if somebody called me and said, speak over here or do this talk or do this thing. So I think it's been a whole journey, but it starts with identifying a sense of purpose. Why are you working? What is it that gives you that happiness? What is it that will give you that sense of purpose? So, yeah.
Okay. Yes, I resonate with a lot of that, the sense of purpose, reinventing every time when it's necessary, to reinvent and carry on. And you've been fortunate, and you've been really successful in, I think, um, making use of the sort of support that you've had around you, including your mentors. So I think that's great. And I love what you've written in your book, that our career need not just be straightforward, like climbing a ladder, but rather it's like climbing a jungle gym. Yeah, I just love that. And so as we keep climbing it, do these thoughts of underachievement keep coming back to you every now and then?
Yeah, just today, I had a company who said that we want to hire you to speak on Women's Day. Then I told them my charges, and they said, no, we will get someone else. We can't do this. So there are a lot of people who don't value you, and you start thinking, how do you get value? So I think that it happens all the time. It happens all the time that you feel you can be doing better. But I think when you have a sense of purpose and you know that you are on a particular path, then everything becomes better. Like they say, the purpose of life is a life of purpose. That is the phrase. I have it in the book also, that the purpose of life is a life of purpose. So when you have that, and even in the Gita, there's a shlok in the Gita that I've quoted in my book, which is that when you find your own dharma, there is a sense of peace. But if you follow somebody else's dharma, there is always a sense of danger, and there is a sense of insecurity. And when you find your own path, you feel okay. So I think once you're on the right path, then you'll get there. It might take you a bit longer than someone else, but you can definitely get there. And it doesn't have to look like, as you said, wo jungle gym career mein hum log sab upar niche is taraf ja sakte hain, and you see how happy children are on a jungle gym. Would they be rather climbing a ladder, or would the child be happy on the jungle gym? Much happier on the jungle gym.
Yeah. Right. Totally. I totally agree with you. And I think I should laminate the whole jungle gym and purpose of life is a life of purpose quote. I'm also a fan of a lot of quotes, as you can see. So we had some related questions coming up in the chat, which we'll take later. But I'll move on to my next question, which is on relationships. लेकिन सिर्फ romantic relationships ही नहीं, I mean relationships with various important people in our lives. कि आपने कहा है mental health is a team sport and you put together a really good team. But how did you manage to ask for help so efficiently from your family, friends and colleagues? कि help मांगना ही इतना मुश्किल होता है, फिर हमें पता नहीं कौन help कर पाएगा, और उसके बाद you have to bring them all on the same page. So how did you do it?
I think that was my instinct. I know a friend of mine who suffers from depression, and जब उसको depression के जो episodes आते हैं, तो वो तो सियाचिन ग्लेशियर जैसे पहुंचती है, like she is unreachable, she is isolated, she doesn't answer phone calls, she's difficult to get through, and you don't know what's going on, and then you think, okay, that person doesn't care for you, आप उस phone नहीं कर रहे हैं, कॉल नहीं कर रहे हैं, कुछ मिलना नहीं चाहते हैं, so they are cutting themselves off. So I think the part about me, which is I think I've just been lucky with, is that I have a lot of good friends, and I just felt that this is the way to be authentic with them, that I have to tell them the truth about myself. If I was not doing that, and the thing is also, people get to know ना, जो करीब हैं, जो नजदीक है, उनको पता हो जाता है कि कुछ तो प्रॉब्लम है.
Right.
तो आपकी तबीयत ठीक नहीं है, आप ठीक से, मतलब आप मैनिक हो रहे हैं, आप डिप्रेस्ड हो रहे हैं, तो आपकी तो तबीयत खराब है, तो उनको कुछ तो पता है कि कुछ हो रहा है ना. तो so then you naturally want to tell them and you want to discuss it. And so it was for me a very, very, very natural instinct of discussing and getting advice and listening. And that was the way I learned, I guess, and get advice. So I didn't put my, I try not to put my ego into it and say that I'm perfect and everything around me is, to be blamed. I looked at it as a learning opportunity. I think that, so we can talk more about that, but I think it just came as a very natural tendency. And I acknowledge that not everybody is like that. Some people, as I said, they're literally going off to Siachen. So it's for them very different.
Right, right. I used to be more of the Siachen goer at some point, complete isolation and all that. But I think with it also improves with time. I think the way you have coped by talking to a lot of people early on itself. I think for some of us that happens a little later in life, or it's just how coping mechanisms evolve over time, I would say, and you find your sweet spot of whom you can talk to and whom not, even within your close family and all of that. I just felt that the way you were so open about it with your friends and all, almost from the time when you started figuring it out, was unique, because actually a lot of people lose friends, they lose friendships when mania hits, and they end up doing things uh, when they're not themselves, and nobody really understands after that. So there, would you, I mean, what did you really, what would you say to that situation?
Well, yeah, I think the thing in life also is to be a good friend. If you are a good friend yourself, आप दूसरों की देखभाल करेंगे, आप खुद ही मतलब आप खुद भी मतलब दोस्ती निभाएंगे, then people will do that with you, right? It's not that people became friends with me because I was unwell. It was because I was already friends with all these people, that when I told them I was unwell and I'm having these issues and this is what's going on and this is what's triggering it, then they also reciprocated. Because one of my friends, she says in the book, actually, you're a very unselfish person, you've done a lot for other people, and friendship ultimately is about reciprocity. It's not just friendship, it's your family relationships also. Like my sister, she says in the book that you were always a very loving older sister. If you were the type to bully me, then I wouldn't have helped you, I wouldn't have been there for you, I wouldn't have stayed up at night, I wouldn't have had you in my house, I wouldn't have taken care of you and given you a room to stay when you needed that quiet and peace time to yourself. So
Right.
she's done all that for me, but that's because also I've been a good sister. So I think that's very important ki, we all have certain expectations from others, but we also have to be a good friend and a good family member ourselves.
Right, right. With your mention of a sister, actually, I just had one small follow-up question there. How, there are people who we are close to. How do we manage when that one person, or, one or two people that we are close to who have loved you and taken care of you, in other words, they're your caregivers, are not physically present with you? Because actually Warriors Connect के भी काफी members हैं जो अपने caregivers से दूर रहते हैं, तो उनके लिए आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगी?
हाँ, मेरी बहन जो मेरी बहुत क्लोज फ्रेंड है, वो लंदन में रहती है। मेरी जो दोनों बेस्ट फ्रेंड्स हैं, एक दुबई में रहती है और एक सैन फ्रांसिस्को में रहती है। एंड कभी कभी ये टाइम जोन में भी नहीं है, तो जब मैं उनसे बात करना चाहती हूँ, उनको कुछ दूसरा काम करना होता है, वो ऑफिस में जाते हैं या उनके मतलब फैमिली रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज होती हैं या कुछ ना कुछ होता है, तो आई थिंक वो भी होता रहता है। बट आई थिंक द मेन थिंग इज, आर यू इन सिंक विद द पर्सन? आप वीडियो कॉल कर सकते हैं कभी भी, कभी, हर रोज तो, अगर शायद हर रोज पॉसिबल नहीं है तो एवरी अदर डे यू कैन डू वीडियो कॉल्स। अगर जो मेरी फ्रेंड जो यूएस में रहती है, हम लोग वॉइस नोट्स शेयर करते हैं, क्योंकि वी डोंट इवन स्पीक टू ईच अदर बिकॉज आवर टाइम डिफरेंसेस इज सो मच, और 12 घंटे का अंतर, 12-13 घंटे का अंतर है। सो आई थिंक दैट वी हैव टू मेक एन एफर्ट टू बी इन सिंक विद ईच अदर्स लाइव्स। और अभी सब व्हाट्सएप और जो भी टेक्नोलॉजी है उससे वो हम लोग सब कर पा सकते हैं। एंड आई थिंक दैट just being in the same place is obviously very very good, but I think even remote technology से काफी कुछ हो सकता है। The main thing is, do you want to be in sync with each other? आपको पता है क्या उनकी जिंदगी में डेली बेसिस पर क्या हो रहा है? So I call this the daily download friend, कि डेली बेसिस में आपके जो मूड स्विंग्स हो रहे हैं, if you're up, if you're down, can you share that with the person? Do they know what's going on with your life? What are you doing? Are you traveling? Are you doing some project at work? What is happening with your family? All these things जो daily अपनी life है, उनको उसका पता है कि नहीं? That is what I call, if you have that kind of friendship, it will actually happen anywhere. It can sustain.
Right. So basically what you're saying is really cultivate good relationships around you. foster them. And if you have made good friendships and good relations, then they're likely to last even when the situation gets rough. So the good friends will stick around as long as you've invested in that relationship as well, equally, and you continue to do so. So that's great. And another question regarding caregiving in one sense, Aparna, चाहे caregiving दूर से हो रही हो या पास से हो रही हो, it always takes a toll on the caregiver, you know, when the situation is severe, at least I would say. So and आज यहाँ पे काफी caregivers मौजूद हैं, many of them are members of Warriors Connect. Would you like to tell them how your caregivers managed this toll?
I think they supported each other. This is why I call it, love therapy, where सब लोग support करते हैं. So especially my mother, my sister, and my husband, they supported each other. Or abhi, I am actually in a caregiving role myself for somebody who has a brain condition, and my sister and I, we support each other in that role. So I think एक दूसरे को support करना is बहुत ज़रूरी है. The caregiver themselves requires support, and they require their own networks of people that they can talk to, the other caregivers, but other friends or extended family members or people they can just talk to about this condition. Because I know that I've said things at times that have been quite painful for some of the family members to hear. It's been difficult for them. So they also have to have their own places where they can relax, unwind, they can let go of it. They have to have other people that they can talk to. और इसलिए मैं कहती हूँ कि caregivers के लिए भी therapy जरूरी है. सब लोग caregivers therapy के लिए नहीं जाते हैं, पर उनका भी बहुत valuable role है और उनके लिए भी therapy की जरूरत है from time to time.
Right, absolutely. I think caregivers have a huge role to play in everything, so they must take care of themselves as well. Okay, and as you can see, Aparna, the chat box is really buzzing with a lot of questions, which is great. That was the whole intent of having this Zoom call as an interactive session with the audience. But just before we start taking up those questions, the last thing that I want to personally ask you is about your take on self-love. क्योंकि मुझे ऐसा लगता है that self-love बहुत important है, लेकिन उसको achieve करना बहुत मुश्किल है. Seems like a distant dream at points in time. So how did you manage it, and how do you manage to keep it intact?
Yeah, so actually I used affirmations a lot because, my therapist told me that you don't think of yourself as good enough and you don't love yourself and accept yourself. आप खुद को बहुत judge करते हैं, criticize करते हैं. So she actually gave me a set of 5-6 affirmations. वो, again, they are there in the book. There's a chapter actually called self-therapy. तो उस chapter में ये सब affirmations हैं. And she literally made me say, ये इनको कागज पर लिखो और अपने handbag में रखो, और जहीं भी आप जाओगे या हर रोज 1 साल के लिए एटलीस्ट कम से कम ये affirmations बोलते रहो. And I think these affirmations, they do help to rewire your brain, and just tell yourself, and it is not only for self-love, you can say affirmations for anything, So I think they were really important for me to get myself, as a starting point. And Baki or be therapy and all other things were also there. But I think these affirmations were actually very, very important to just make me realize that life is not all about success, and that, ultimately being successful is not about being happy, but being happy is a mark of success,
Yes, that's wonderful. And the success and happiness relationship, right? And it's hard to crack, it may seem very simplistic if you say it, but yeah, it's not simplistic in actuality. And affirmations, I think they've been doing the rounds. I think the concept of doing affirmations is picking up. It may or may not work for some, unfortunately, but the concept of practicing something and believing in something and making it happen is pure neuroscience. So that definitely is something we should aim to do. Yeah. So Aparna, I don't want to take up more one-on-one time actually. So I'd like to move on to the audience, but thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I'd actually like to quote you here. And it's in fact the quote that we've put up on the website of Warriors Connect as well. It just says, if it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a community to heal the mind. And it's just so beautiful. And that is why we're building our community, Warriors Connect, for peer support. And I'm really happy that many of our members are here, and hopefully some of our future members are also here. They've been putting up some pertinent questions on the chat. So can we take them up now?
Yeah, sure.
In the very start, when we were just talking about mental health in general, there was a big question regarding denial. So the initial hesitation or denial that happens when, even the person who's going through the difficulties does not understand or does not accept that it's a mental health situation. So how do you overcome self-denial and then the family's denial? Can you offer some experience?
I mean, I think that is the biggest question. That's the question that comes across the most when in conversations and in most of my interactions with people. And I went through that myself, because from the time that I had my first incident, I was 24 years old. And when I had my official diagnosis, I was 37 years old. So 13 saal ka antar tha. Between these the incident and the official diagnosis. In between, I did go for therapy, but I didn't start medication and have a official diagnosis. So I think the way to overcome that really is to get the help of people who are knowledgeable about this subject, that to talk to you and to talk to the family members, so like in our case, there was one family member, family friend actually, who was a oncosurgeon. So he was very well respected, and he was a mentor to my husband. So he actually said that, look, she has to go to a psychiatrist now. She's not doing well. And he introduced us to a psychiatrist. And because he was saying it, we trusted him. Earlier there were a lot of issues. Who do you trust? Who do you go to? But if there is somebody that you trust and they are recommending someone, then that becomes a lot easier. So even recently I had this whole instance in my family also. There was somebody who had another issue, and they were not willing to acknowledge it. And for 1 year, I kept on telling them, look, we need to take you to a doctor. And that person did not agree. But finally, I took them to a doctor that they trust, who was not the specialist. And then that doctor said, okay, you need to see the specialist. And so because that person told them, they went to the specialist. Otherwise they were not going to the specialist when I was telling them. So, just other people saying it, not saying it, people agree. But if there's somebody that you trust who says it, I think we have a hand up.
One more question that has come up, Aparna, is the why me question. The victim card, how to get rid of that?
Yeah, so I mean, I have to say, Avni, that I've had a lot of privilege in my life in terms of the family I was born into and the kind of education I've received and the opportunities and everything that I've received. So I never had reason to feel why me. But I would say, I have a very strong sense of faith, and I always believe that if a higher power thinks that I am strong enough to go through this, then I am strong enough to go through it. So I think I just, the way around why me is just to sort of, is to accept that there are times when, yes, that it is difficult. And, I don't like the fact that, for example, I put on so much weight in the last 5-7 years with this medication and with other things. But at the same time, I just look at it as a very positive way, and I really look actually now over time. A friend of mine said this, she read the whole book and she said, Aparna, what you've done is you've looked at your illness as your guru, and instead of saying, why me, can we not say that your illness is your guru and your guru is teaching you something and you're allowing it to teach you something? And that's been one of the reasons why I'm in this position today, where I can talk about it, write about it, address people about it. So because I looked at this as a learning opportunity for me, I learned so much about gratitude. I learned so much about humility. I learned so much about detachment. I learned so much about the human condition. I learned about the human mind. I learned about the potential of the human mind. I learned all these things from my condition, and I would not have learned it if I didn't have the condition. So I believe in that higher power. I believe that there is a guru that is teaching me something in life. And gurus come in all shapes and sizes. And, my guru is my bipolarity. So.
Right. I've come to believe the biggest guru is adversity of any kind.
Yeah, exactly.
Could be the mental health condition or whatever. So yes, definitely. And Aparna, this is a good segue into one of the questions that has been asked, because you were talking about higher power. Danielle has actually asked about spirituality. Danielle, I'm asking you to unmute yourself. If you could please keep it just brief and ask your question.
Sure. Thank you both, firstly, for the space. Yeah, it seems very from your book, Aparna, that you have a very strong anchor in spirituality. Feels like you use that consciously and also obviously unconsciously. So I'm just curious, right now, on a day-to-day basis, weekly, monthly, whatever, how do you use spirituality consciously?
Well, I think that some of the ideas that I learned in spirituality, especially the idea of detachment and not being consumed by my emotions and having self-awareness. I mean, you learn that in therapy also, but I learned that a lot in spirituality and in Vedanta. And not having attachment. So a lot of these ideas of spirituality, I think I try and practice on a daily basis. Just today, actually, I was feeling very unhappy in the morning about something, but I was able to message the person that I was feeling unhappy about and say, this is what I'm going through. Okay, and I need you to respond to this. So I had that awareness of saying that this is what's going on. So that idea of looking at an emotion but not becoming the emotion is a very strong concept in Hinduism, Buddhism, in the kind of spirituality that I've been exposed to. So that's one way. And then as a practice, I think I listen to a lot of music. So a lot of, spiritual music. It could be anything from Sufi gospel to bhajans to, hymns like Christmas carols. I listen to Christmas carols in June. So, so I think it could be a lot of music like that, which for me is very, very positive. And no matter how bad I'm feeling, music will always lift me up and make me feel that there's something more than me. So I think that there are many, many ideas of spirituality which I talked about in the book. Gratitude is one of them. That the idea of giving something to people is one of them. So I think I try and practice those as much as possible on a regular basis.
So there is a question regarding the term caregiving. The term caregiver does not sound appealing, and you have any takes on that?
Well, I think caregiving is a better term than policing, because sometimes it becomes policing. So, have you taken your meds? Have you eaten properly? How much have you slept? When was the last time you slept? How are you feeling? What are you thinking? Where are you going? When are you going to be back? I mean, I think these are all the questions that caregivers ask of people with mental health conditions. And these are the questions that one has to go through. So I think, to me, caregiving is a better word than policing, because often it feels like policing. So, yeah.
Okay, so that's this side's perspective. There are questions regarding the fact that what if the family is not supportive? So I know in your case, your family was, but I think by now you would have met a lot of people. And, what advice would you give to a family who is new to this? It's newfound knowledge that someone in their family is diagnosed with a mental health condition, or is not even diagnosed, is suspected to have a mental health condition.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we have more resources now to educate ourselves, certainly, okay, in terms of information that's out there on the internet. I wouldn't, trust everything that's out there, but certainly you have that. There are more therapists and counselors and psychiatrists and all of those people available for people to educate. But ultimately, the only thing to do is to be able to educate people, and to get them to understand. And I think that's why forums like this of what you're doing, there could be 500 people on this call, and we would be doing a lot of good work for them to know about what these conditions are all about, because only when you've lived through it and you understand. But I think just the only thing that we can do is to have education happening at many different levels. Unfortunately, we don't have this formalized system of education, so people have to rely on their own resources. But there are so many more forums and chat and ways to educate, and yeah, and then to find allies wherever you can. If the family is not supportive, there could be one chacha or one chachi or one tauji or one fufa or bua or mama, mami, someone who is supportive of this or who knows. So you have to find the allies. It's really, really, really important to find allies and not try and fight this on your own. There's one thing, Avni, which I did not say so much in Chemical Khichdi, but because I didn't want to seem like I was kind of boasting or anything like that. But, at some level, I took charge of my mental health.
Right.
And it was up to me to do that. Like everything else, whether it was the journaling or going to the doctors, I've never missed my meds at all. Like maybe a dozen times in 10 years or something, I must have missed my meds. I never miss my meds. So, just watching that lifestyle part of it, building the allies, you have to take charge of your own mental health. You can't expect someone else to do that. And that's really, really important,
Absolutely. I think that's where the tide also begins to change, when you start taking charge. And why not write that in the book? Actually, it is very, very important. I think all of us eventually end up doing that when we're mature and we understand that we have this thing, we have the acceptance, and we want to move past all these things that we do, identifying allies and all that can only be done when we are somewhat okay, not in the throes of the depression or mania. Yeah. Right. So we have to use the good time to do this work. Can insulate us during the bad times. Thank you, Aparna. When it comes to depression and depression alone, is there any one hack that you would suggest for someone?
I would really say start with gratitude, because I think what it does is that when I was depressed, I felt that, I was in a black hole. And it was just so difficult to even climb out of that black hole. Where do you start? Where is the first, first rung of that ladder? And that first rung of that ladder to me is gratitude, because you're saying that you are grateful for whatever little you have. Whatever little you have, okay, if nothing else, you're grateful to be alive. And you're grateful for the people who care for you. You're grateful for the fact that you still have something going for you. You have relationships that, of people who love you and care for you. So I think that gratitude is the beginning to opening your mind to the positive thoughts, because when one is depressed, there's only negative thoughts. There's hopelessness and despair, and, you don't see any future and all of that. So the gratitude is that beginning, that little bit of light that you need, that will take you towards the end of the tunnel. That's gratitude for me. So whether you have a journal, whether you write it somewhere, or however you feel it. And you can get that gratitude also by giving, like by doing some charity work, philanthropy, sharing some of what you have. You realize then how much, other people are grateful for what you've done, and you are grateful that what you have compared to a lot of other people also. So I think that gratitude and giving go together. So I just think cultivating that attitude of gratitude is really, really important. And I'll say one more thing actually that I did, again, I think I was quite depressed when I was at business school, and there were a lot of things going on in my life at that point, that my parents were going through a separation, and I had broken off a relationship, and I was also not enjoying business school that much. The classes and everything were not, something that I enjoyed very much. Now, those were like the big things, Avni, in my life that I couldn't change. There's nothing that I could do to change any of those three things in my life, but I could enjoy the little things. So I could enjoy a cup of coffee with my friends. I could enjoy going on a bike ride by the river. I could enjoy listening to my favorite Bollywood music. I could enjoy going to a yoga class. I could enjoy going to a creative writing class. I could enjoy all those things. And so I made it a practice that before I went to bed, I would think of all the things that I enjoyed doing that day. And what happens is that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You start thinking tomorrow, what are the things that you're going to do that you're going to think about at the end of the day. And so you start doing all these little things and you start becoming happier. You can't solve the big things. And eventually, actually, those big things did solve themselves, right? All those things that I talked about, they did solve themselves. I found some classes that I liked. My parents' relationship improved a lot. I mean, they separated, but they were both happier. And then I did eventually find a relationship that I was happy in. So all of those things did sort themselves out eventually. But in the meantime, these little things that you think of, and just do those little things, and it'll become like a prophecy of saying, you actively have to say, I'm going to take that decision to be happy. I'm going to choose happiness today. And actually, and then you're in a state to fight the stuff that is really causing you the unhappiness.
Right. Right. It is a lot about what we choose at the end of the day. Great. So one more important question has come up regarding therapy. So a lot of people, frankly, do not have a therapist for one reason or the other. Some might be wanting to, but it hasn't worked out, and they aren't very much available. Every therapist doesn't suit everyone. So it is, quite difficult to, find that match. But the specific question for you was, how did you figure out, therapy for yourself? The thing was, did you have to try out many different therapists, before you found the one? It sounds like a marriage, but in a way it is, right? What do you say about therapy?
I think that therapy, I don't think, it's not necessary that you find somebody who you always like, but it's worth giving it a shot and not giving up on it. I myself have had 3 therapists over the last 20 years. And I think that over that period of time, they've all serve different needs at different points. And I've realized after a point that, they are not necessarily going to work beyond a point, but I'm very happy for what they've done so far. And then it was time to change to somebody else. So I think the main thing is you have to be motivated enough to find the right person for you, and there are more options now in my book again, and on my social media. And by the way, I'm posting a lot on social media on mental health and particularly on therapy in the coming days. So if you want to follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, on any of these handles, there'll be a lot of information on therapy in particular, and in this coming month in February. But I think you just have to say that, look, this is worth doing, like worth investing the time and trying to find it. And don't expect that you find a miracle immediately. Like if you go to the gym, it takes you like 6-8 sessions, right, to see some results, at least 10 sessions, 12 sessions. You have to go for 2 months or 3 months. It's not going to happen immediately that you're going to get a result in the first session or the second session. So I think it's worth giving that, worth doing that effort.
Right. I agree. I had to change 3 therapists to find the one that worked for me in an even shorter amount of span than what you have mentioned. So
yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I'm so glad you mentioned that your social media handle is going to have a lot of information on therapy. I'm sure everyone here and all the rest of our members are going to capitalize on that. So at this point, Aparna, I should tell you that we are nearing 9:30 almost. I want to be mindful and respectful of your time. So I'm mentioning this. There are some other questions. I would, although the author is sitting in this room, but I would recommend reading Chemical Khichdi or hearing it now that the audiobook
is out. The audiobook is out. Yes, if you prefer that I've narrated it myself. So it's a very personal approach. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Maybe I'll also check it out, even though I've read it. But yeah, so I do recommend people to read the book. I think it would be very enlightening. A lot of things are there which you can really imbibe. I have learned a lot, I would say. Some things were in the subconscious mind, but when they're written so well, you tend to grasp it better. So that's how it has been. Um, Aparna, now you could let me know, do you want to stick around for a little longer for a couple of other questions, or can we wrap it up?
No, I can stick around. It's not a problem.
Okay, okay.
But if anybody has to leave, then since it's 9:30, if anybody wants to leave, they're free to leave, of course, anytime. But if we want to stick around for a few more questions, we can do that.
Okay, okay. So there were a lot of questions which were very specific with regards to what if the behavioral issues are, extreme, what if this is happening and that is happening and there is suicidal ideation and those kind of things. I would just say those questions are very specific, and if the condition is going really way down, then the generic answers would be like the ones that Aparna has already given, that institutionalization or go to the doctor or emergency helplines. That is not something where I think we can factor in any advice, so to say, right now. Correct, Aparna?
Yeah, I think that it's really important to get yourself professional medical care, and again and again I go back, we have a lot of helplines, suicide helplines, also emergency helplines in the book. They're there obviously online also, you can find them, you don't have to go through only in the book. But it's the medical side is really important. Through my most difficult times, I would not have made it without my psychiatrist support. The times when I really needed it, I needed my psychiatrist there. And so did my family. They relied on it. Now I can take care of myself. But there.
Okay.
The audiobook is in English, yes. I think there's a message there.
Okay, I see. There are some new questions that just came out once you decided to stick on longer, but I'll take one of the older ones. This is more from the psychological point of view, that the future sometimes is a very looming dark object in our head, and it's very difficult to think about it. So, how to stop fearing the future?
I think it's like a real process that, at least what I have followed, Avni, is that it's not been possible for me when I have been really unwell to focus on what the triggers are. Okay, to understand the things that make me unhappy has happened only when I'm a little bit better. Okay, so when you are at your lowest, it is important to just stabilize. And if you need meds to help you do that, if you need a positive environment to be with your family, like I had to literally leave my house and go to my mother's house or go to my sister's house for, a week or 10 days at a time until I was better and could come back. And even when I came back to my own home, I was literally just sitting on a swing or not going out of the house or just, not doing my normal routine for a long period of time. It is only when I am well that I can start to think of what my triggers are. That why is this happening? Why am I scared of the future? What am I afraid of? So I think first, when you're really going through that low, just try and focus of just coming out of that low in small ways. Don't try and solve the whole problem of the future right now, because it's difficult to solve it right now. You're not equipped. It's like saying there's peacetime and there's wartime. And when you're in wartime, you just have to fight and get better. And when you're in peacetime, you can do all the training, which is all this, which is figuring out why you're so scared of the future. What is it about the past that's happened that's made you so scared of the future? What trauma are you living with? What is it that is going to make you happy? What is happiness for you? What is success for you? What is it that's happening in your relationships? What is it that's happening in your identity? All these issues, right? These are the things that might make us afraid of the future. I'm just speculating. I don't know what the issues are, but I'm just saying that it's really, really hard to do that when you're in the trenches. you know. You need to just come out of the trenches and a little bit and then be able to do it.
Fantastically
I mean,
said.
somebody gave me a really good quote, you know, that said that when we're depressed, we're thinking about the past. When we're anxious, we're thinking about the future. And it's only when we're peaceful that we're thinking about the present, you know. When we're thinking about the present, we're peaceful, you know. So that anxiety about the future is to make that go away. Just try and sort of, as much as possible, just be free yourself from the anxiety a little bit to make yourself a little bit happier, and then figure out why it's happening, you know.
Right. So fantastic. You might have just provided freaky therapy of some sort.
I don't know.
Multiple people here. But yeah, really, really nice. I would like to ask the question that actually Daniel has written in the chat, but it's my question too. What are the big challenges you face today? I mean, it's a journey, right? It never really ends.
Yeah. So the challenge is a very good question. Thank you for asking that. So the challenges I face today is I don't have the extreme mood swings of mania and depression that I do, but I still have a lot of mood swings, like in the sense that, you know, 2-3 days ago, I could be really happy about something, then I could be really unhappy about something. So, so the roller coaster is maybe not that much, like it's not that extreme, but it's still a roller coaster. The roller coaster has not gone, you know. So it's and you know, how long can one stay on the roller coaster, right? We all go on roller coaster for 3 minutes, 4 minutes. We are not sitting on the roller coaster for forever, right? So I think the big challenge for me is that I'm still on that roller coaster. It's just that it's more manageable. That's one thing. And second thing is, yeah, a result of this roller coaster is that I have to reclaim my body. I think I've reclaimed my mind, but you know, I still think that I use sugar as a source of comfort and joy, and a lot of things that stress buster that a lot of us do. And so that's reflecting, you know, in my kind of health and fitness and all of that. So I think I have to reclaim my body in just with just as much energy as I did in reclaiming my mind.
Right. That is also very similar to my situation. Oh my God, it's becoming uncanny. I think my husband and my mother are in this call, so I will exchange notes with them later. But I do completely understand the fact that the intensity may be higher, but then it decreases. It just doesn't just vanish. And I don't know if it can ever vanish, but even the decreased intensity is something that, you know, we have to deal with, and those around us need to adjust with at times. And how are you doing the, you know, reclaiming your body bit? I've read the book, and there are some mentions there.
No, I mean, I just I'm just working very closely with my trainer to just be very conscious of what I'm eating. But there's a clear link between my moods and my food habits, you know. I think a lot of us have this problem. I'm not unique in this case, but it's very, very clear that when my mood is not happy, my food habits go for a toss. So if I want to lose weight, then I have to be really consistent in my moods, you know, and literally they can change, right? 1 week I can say I've walked like, you know, 50,000 steps this week. And then the next 2 days I can be in bed and say, I just don't feel like doing any exercise. Yeah. So I think just getting that consistency is really important.
Yes. Okay. This is an important question, I think, because relationships play a huge part in a lot of conversations we have at Warriors Connect. So we have a member asking, can you please talk about the role your husband played in your journey? Because finding a supportive partner is hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been tough on him. I think there have been times in our relationship when both he and I have questioned whether this is something that's going to, you know, stay the course. But I think, you know, we both felt that I guess none of us wanted to be defeated by this, you know. So that I guess that was obvious. Apart from the bond itself, I don't think we wanted the illness to become a factor between us. But I think the biggest thing is, you know, he understood that it's a medical condition. And he didn't look at it as a personality issue. Initially he did, and all of us did, but he understood that there is a medical condition, and there's a difference between a medical condition and a personality. And I think in India we still struggle with that. So I think that was very important. His mother was a big positive influence on him. And so there were positive, he had a lot of, positive influences and people that he could also seek help from. So that made it easier for him also.
Right. Okay. It's really a very, big question for those who are seeking relationships, who are dating, and also wondering, okay, what is the right time to disclose about my illness? How will it be taken? How will I trust the person I'm dating? Can they become the long-term partners? It really is a very, difficult area to navigate. In your case, it all started after you were already married, right?
Well, no, I mean, I had these manic episodes before I got married, but then I wasn't diagnosed before we got married. So I told him that I have all of this, but he just thought it's a personality issue, and he attributed it to life circumstances. He didn't think it was a medical condition. So I did disclose to him, but we were not quite sure what it was, So I think that you have to say that, look, with any relationship, nothing is perfect or imperfect, So I think the more, it's better to disclose before or after, because things can happen at any point in time, you know what I mean, to anyone. So it's difficult to sort of, I mean, I would say it's better to say, like I said, I was open with him about everything that had happened in my life before we got married, and he was okay with that. But and then when this happened, he sort of, it was very difficult for him, but we managed to make it through. So
yeah. Well, congrats for that, and you can keep congratulating yourself every day while you're still, on this journey together. So I really do think that couples should, married, unmarried, whoever, like partners, if we are able to deal with the mental health condition somehow and support each other through it, it's a really big win-win in my eyes. So again, I'm saying, Aparna, it's now 9:40. Do you think you want to wrap it up now?
look, I mean, actually, I have no issue. You just be the master of ceremonies, so to speak. I don't really have a problem with it. If your audience has questions, I can answer them. That's not an issue.
Yes, I mean, those will kind of never end. That's why I was asking you whether you're okay to stay on.
So we'll do a couple more, and then we can wrap up, I guess.
Okay, so we wrap up at 9:45. So I think one question that just caught my eye right now is how to identify if someone has sympathy or empathy about how we feel facing our daily challenges. And also one more question about like, if you see on a daily basis, if you're having mood swings or what is the most common stuff that you do on a daily basis?
Just 1 minute. Yeah. What? Come. It's fine. Oh, that's my son.
Oh, okay.
The most common, sorry, could you just repeat the question? One was common thing, and
just okay, let's start with what are the common things you do on a daily basis when you can feel that your mood is not stable, it's going up and down?
Yeah. So usually these days it doesn't go like really high. It can go low, because I think the highs I sort of feel I'm kind of matured a bit, and I'm not, going that high. I can get happy and excited, but not manic in that way. But the low obviously keeps happening. So music is really a hack for me. Like, you have to understand that there's something that, like, literally, like, it's injecting yourself with dopamine or something, like music for that is my hack. So I think that you have to have something that you can just do. That's one. Second thing is I really lean on my friends a lot. I have a few close friends, and they are like an emotional barometer. And whenever I'm feeling bad, I just say, I am feeling bad. This is what I'm going through right now. and they will always swallow it, and they will always get up, and they know that there'll be good times and bad times. And whenever I'm feeling good, I'll tell them that I'm feeling good right now, and this is what's going on. So they are kind of used to those fluctuations and the roller coaster, but they really are my support. So I would say that. And then journaling, I think I've started using this app called Stoic. It's available easily, STOIC, and it's very good for recording any kind of modes. It's got breathing exercises, quotes, inspirational quotes, starting off your day well, ending. There are a lot of different things that you can do. You can use it the way you want to, but I use it like a mini journal. If I don't have my journal with me, then I have the phone with me and the app. So I think the basic idea is, in one nutshell, Avni, is to get distance from the emotion, not to let the emotion own you, and not to say that you are the emotion, i.e. that if there is anxiety, not to say that I am anxious, to be able to say, okay, I'm noticing that I am anxious. I'm aware that I am anxious. I can see that I'm anxious. And just to put that little bit of distance in, and say that this is what I'm worried about, and this is what I can control and what I can't control, and this is what I can do and can't do about it, So just to put that distance between you and the emotion is really important. And these 3-4 things really help me do that.
Right. These are good hacks. I will keep them in mind. Yeah, I think putting the distance in between is great. One tends to forget about it. Language matters so much, right? I am anxious. I see anxiety taking over me. So yeah, it's really great. I think, Aparna, we should wrap up now. I'm taking that call. There are a few chat messages where it says this should have been a 2-hour session, but it's not happening. I'm glad that we got 1 hour and an extra 15 minutes out of you.
That's fine. We can maybe do something later on in the year also. We can do another session or something like that.
Yeah, sure. That will be another highlight for us then, if we do that. Okay. So once again, I thank you for coming here, being so honest and candid, and absolutely no filters wali bhasha use hui hai aaj. So I really appreciate that. And I thank all the other people who have joined us, members of Warriors Connect and others, for coming and speaking to us today. I think you all can go check out Chemical Khichdi book or audiobook. And in the meanwhile, you may also consider joining us in Warriors Connect, because like how Aparna was saying, she has a few friends who are her emotional barometer. For me and for other members of our community, Warriors Connect, I think we do that for one another. About Warriors Connect, तो मैं हमारी community के बारे में कुछ बोलना चाहती थी. वो ये है कि ये एक safe और non-judgmental space तो है ही, but एक important बात ये है कि यहाँ सब equals है. Yeah, so true peers, फाउंडर, फाउंडिंग टीम, एज, सीनियोरिटी, कौन सा डिसऑर्डर, कुछ मैटर नहीं करता है, सब इक्वल है. अभी अखिलेश्वर सर ने हमें ज्वाइन किया है, वो इतने एक्सपीरियंस्ड हैं, लेकिन वो भी हमारे पीयर ही हैं, क्योंकि हम सबकी एक्सपीरियंसेस यूनिक है और उनको शेयर करना ही हमारा पर्पस है. सो वी आर वांटिंग टू अबॉलिश लोनलीनेस and shame associated with mental illness of all kinds. That's why हम किसी एक disorder पे restricted नहीं है, लेकिन हमारे पास एक theme based organized community structure है, जो हमारी micro communities है. हम हर week अपने members के लिए events भी रखते हैं, but most of our events are not public events like these, right? They are meant only for our members so that they get to talk freely about sensitive matters with each other. तो हम छोटे छोटे ऑनलाइन हडल्स पे मिलते हैं, हम अपनी खुद की स्टोरीज के स्टोरी टेलिंग सेशंस करते हैं, हम फेस टू फेस भी मिलते हैं, एटलीस्ट दिल्ली वाले मेंबर्स, राइट? तो अगर यहाँ पे कोई है who is not part of Warriors Connect yet, और अगर आप किसी साइकियाट्रिस्ट के पास जाते हैं, किसी मेंटल हेल्थ कंडीशन का डायग्नोसिस हो या फिर ऐसे किसी की केयर करते हैं, तो प्लीज कॉन्टैक्ट करिए मुझे to find out more about our community.